Welcome to On the Sidelines, the show that discusses sports and how sports intersects our lives. I'm your host, Paul McGrath, and I'm glad that you could join us today. We are glad to have with us members of the Westboro High School Rangers hockey team who played in the 1984 state championship game. Scott O'Connor, Jim Brown, and Steve Tepper will reminisce about that season. But before we begin, I would like to mention that our Photos from On the Sidelines segment will have a trivia question, and thanks to our friends at Avidia Bank, a great prize to the winner. All you have to do is email us at studio@westbrotv.org with On the Sidelines trivia as the subject matter. I will repeat that at the Photos from the On Sidelines segment portion of the show. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
We have here Scott O'Connor, senior captain of the 1984 team, Jim Brown, and you were the junior sniper, I believe, on the team.
You say so.
Yeah, well, nobody can disprove it. And Steve Tepper, the little freshman that was on the team. So we're going to talk about March 18th, 1984, when the Westboro High School team went to the state championship game. But before we get there, let's go back. I know all your fathers, but really, you're kind of the sons of Bobby Orr. I mean, Bobby Orr spurred on the hockey phenom here in Westboro. And I just want to go through, each one of you, how you started skating or playing hockey. Was it at the rink or at the pond? Scott, might as well start with you, the captain.
Yeah, the first time I remember playing was on Mill Road. There's a reservoir up there,
Right, yeah.
And I remember my parents took me up there, and there's some kind of organized skate going on, and it was bitterly cold. And I remember getting back in the car afterwards and telling my parents I never want to do that again. And then from there, there was an outdoor rink down by the old Speedway.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
For like maybe a year before the North Star Forum was
even
built.
in, yeah.
So that was the start.
How about you, Jimmy?
Well, it's a good question because I don't even remember going to school. I remember skating on the rink that my father built in the backyard.
Oh, really?
And we were the first that I remember that did that, and that was 100% Bobby Orr.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And why we did that. I remember him hosing down the rink at night when I was going to bed, and we had kids from all over the neighborhood, one of whom was on the team, Dave McDonald. Would walk over on his skates across the street because he didn't want to tie him at our house, and we'd be on the back, and it was about the size of this table, that rink. But we had all sorts of kids on that rink, and 100% because
that's
of
where you
Bobby.
started, yeah.
Absolutely.
How about you, Steve?
My father grew up in Northampton, Western Mass, and I started skating at Williston, the Williston Northampton School. A chicken wire fence around it, pushing a cardboard box around, but it was Bobby Orr, 73, 74, and I remember because my first skates were Bobby Orr Supremes, and that was I had the golden ticket of
Right.
Bobby Orr Supremes,
Right.
and I just remember playing right from that point. Then he would build rinks in the back. We relocated to Westboro here mid to late 80s before the blizzard, and I never stopped skating, and ever since we skated every day after school in the ponds around Westboro. The apple orchard ponds were good because they were small and shallow.
Yeah. So really, you were the sons of Bobby Orr,
Oh, yeah.
and that started it. Yeah. So we go on, and this Westboro hockey program was in its fifth year. It started in 1979-80. So here we are in our fifth year. And the year before, basically, I don't know, depending upon where you read, you lost 11 to 14 players. The coach, you had a new coach. So really, you were an expansion team. Or I don't know if you knew. Scott, you were the captain. Did you know who was who? Or here you have a new coach. Are we into confusion here? Or what? What did you say? Geez, what am I coming back into? You were one of, I think, 3 or 4 seniors on the team.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I really skated a lot with Jim's brother and the Dave Theses, the kids ahead of me. I knew the juniors, the sophomores. That we had a lot of freshmen coming in, which we knew. But yeah, it was a new team, and there was a lot of unknowns.
Now, you, Jim and Scott, it was a new coach. Did you have to get used to that, or did you? How did you adapt to him?
Yeah, we weren't going to do it on talent. I can tell you that. It was Scott mentioned they think they call us the lunch pail kids or something at one point.
Yeah, I remember that.
They could have just as easily called us the ragtag kids or pond hockey.
Well, I
kids,
read
'cause
somewhere they called you the skinheads.
well, eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our
All of us.
mohawks in our.
Not some of us.
Yeah, some,
Some of us didn't want to cut their blonde hair.
so, but you needed to buy into what a coach was going to be saying, because you had to win as a team. We weren't all that talented to be able to win as individuals, for sure, and that's really the secret to that team, was that we believed in what the coach was telling us, and it was amazing to see it come together at the end.
So he had a new system, I guess, compared to what you were used to, or whatever you bought into.
Was it a system or just it was almost like a cult? I mean, to a point. I mean, we just did whatever he told us to do, and
We had those crazy warm-ups at the beginning, the Russian warm-ups
Right.
that we did, but we just did them.
we just did whatever he told us to
It's
do.
calisthenics,
and,
yeah.
You know, we'd do.
Now, you were a freshman, so.
Right. I had no previous
you didn't,
history
yeah.
of the high school team.
Yeah.
Coach Lynch was my youth coach a lot of, years growing up in different ages through the Westboro Royals before they turned into Triborough youth hockey for Westboro. So I knew Coach Lynch. So when Coach Coolidge came in, I was raw. I didn't know anything. Yeah, whatever you tell me to do, it's high school hockey. I'm ready to play.
You were the new kid on the block, yeah, but there were a
Kinda.
bunch of freshmen. I mean, it must have been some of the boys you knew.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photo, and there's quite a few. There
Yeah.
was only 4 seniors, 2, 3 juniors, a couple sophomores. It wasn't a deep upper class type team. There was a lot of freshmen kind of coming in. I only see one goalie there.
Right, according to the record you had, Hunter and McGlinchey was.
Brown.
I guess,
Pat McGlinchey,
Yeah,
but I don't see
McGlinchey,
Pat in
yeah.
the photo.
So, yeah, it's it's going to be March of 2019. Hard to believe it's going to be 35 years
Yeah.
since you guys did this, because hard to believe it's go by so quickly. Let's get into the season. Here's your first game. Your first game was December 14th, 1983, over at the North Star, and you went up against a Shrewsbury team, and you defeated Shrewsbury 4-2, and some freshman named Steve Tepper got a couple goals. Dave McDonald got one, and Scott O'Connor got one. Here's your first game in high school hockey. Do you remember getting 2 goals your first game?
I don't. A lot of games mixed
Probably
in
won.
there,
Yeah.
but no, I don't. I was just playing. I mean, it was pure love of playing hockey at
hockey,
that
yeah.
time. Yeah, and sports, just all kinds of sports. But it was just another season. You leave football right into winter, and then right into a spring sport. That was just the culture of Westboro, or at least my friends, and a lot of the high school that I was kind of a part of.
Yeah.
I know a lot of my friends at that age, that a team I was on, the old Worcester Crusader team, more than about 80% of them went to St. John's. So they were a freshman class at St. John's that had a very good year that year as well. I think went on to the Super 8 that year, or I didn't know if they had the Super 8, but it was like that.
At that time, yeah.
They were a powerhouse, and I wanted to go back to Westboro. That was where I went.
Well,
No,
you started off pretty good, not bad. One record is 1-0, but then you play Algonquin, and they defeated you 5-3. And Danny Moulton got a goal, Steve Tepper got another goal, Andy Fay. But now your record's 1-1. So I guess we don't know who we have or what type of team we have at this point. We go to December 23rd, a couple days before Christmas, and you play Acton Boxborough. You beat them 4-2. Danny Moulton got a couple with Mark Tepper and Jim Brown. And somewhere I read, I think that was your top line. I think Moulton, Tepper, and Brown. Was that?
Yeah, and to beat an Acton Boxborough team that the year before, with heritage like Alan Borbeau and Tom Barrasso and net.
Oh, Tommy was with. Played with them. Yeah.
Scrimmage.
And
I think he was gone, I think, at the time.
yeah, well, we beat them, and we thought that was a big win. We thought we won the states that day. Yeah, I remember.
Well, the team the year before, which Jim and Scott were on, that was a pretty strong team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was super talented team.
Yeah.
They were that first line all had 60, 70 points each. And we went as far as we could that year, because I think that was the Prop 2.5 year where we couldn't have gone any farther. We lost in the district finals, I believe,
Yeah, to Westford.
on a crossbar. Bobby McDonough.
You guys remember. Now, you're talking about profit, it got into my mind, money. Now, my understanding is that at that point in time, the high school budget had no money for hockey.
Correct.
So what?
That's right.
How did you
All right,
guys?
well, that's the other part of this thing. We all said we're Bobby Orr's, but then we all talked about how we started to skate. But the parents on this team, they funded the team. They did Las Vegas nights. You know, my father was a minister, you know, and real upstanding citizens doing Las Vegas nights at a time where, you know,
Yeah.
Car
there wasn't a
washes.
lot of that, and it was
Car
all
washes at Tufts Machine Shop, yard sales. I remember the yard sales they did at
Right.
Tufts Machine
So-
Shop parking lot.
Yeah.
So we were funded by parents in the work that
Mm-hmm.
mostly they did. We chipped in where we could, but they bought the ice.
And this was your 5th year of the program, so I guess.
Yeah,
they
Paul,
really
it wasn't a popular sport.
Yeah.
I mean, hockey
Yeah.
was not what people wanted. There had been some really bad incidents in the past with fighting and
Well, you
real
had the
ugly
big bad
scenes,
Bruins, but
real ugly
people
scenes,
like
right.
the big bad Bruins,
Yeah.
but not, that's a different level.
Well, it was a sport that I remember distinctly them telling my father, the argument against hockey was, it's not a sport you can play the rest of your life. It's not tennis or it's not this or that, and we all played the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And continue to.
I do remember, though, after the year was over and we accomplished this, I got dragged to the school committee meeting and looked at the school committee and said, can we finally have some money? And I forget what the outcome of
This
that
was after the
After the
championship game, yeah,
championship
right.
game, I went to the school committee and said, you know, after all these accomplishments, can we get some money? And I forget what the outcome of it was. I was just there trying to pitch hockey. And
I think there was a big group. Waha was a big part of it too. The Westboro Amateur Hockey Association. I think I don't know the difference, you know, kind of between where our parents left off and they picked up, and WABA would come in. I think the Westboro Athletic Boosters Association. So there was.
People chipping in for sure.
We didn't really focus on that. We just did whatever we were
No,
told
but
to
it shows
do.
what the
And,
parents did.
oh,
we're car
amazing.
washing today. We're
Because, you know, it's not basketball. Basketball, a pair of sneakers, away you go.
And it's early mornings, it's all that stuff that the parents are, it's always been a parent-heavy sport. I mean, it's huge commitment.
it wasn't that expensive. You had Spags around, so you could just get your.
Well, I'll tell you, back in the day, they when you signed up for hockey, you'd bring all your equipment down, and I would always take Danny Gillis's skates
Yeah.
from the year before, so it was
Hockey
kind of a swap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, there wasn't buying, you know, necessarily, just everybody in town brought their stuff. If it fit you, off you went. It's great.
Well, I think, Steve, you got a helmet there we can show?
I did. They bought these. I don't know. I think Waha bought these for us. I
So
believe.
this was a helmet from the season. It looks,
Well, it has a different mask on because my kids put it on there. They put it on our shelf, but it was essentially a.
NASA developed those.
It's a whitewater rafting helmet or skydiving helmet is what it is.
Right.
Because it has so much
Roller derby.
concussion protection when you squeeze it like that, and you squeeze it to front to back. It's basically just foam padding in
Soft
there.
foam,
I think you know, we wore them though. They told us to wear them. They bought them, but that was they put the stickers on them for them. I think they talked Jibo into letting us have some football striping for our helmets.
oh, I see, yeah.
Nice.
To make them look a little bit more pro. But yeah, they bought us ProTech 9000s or something like that.
No, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they were
That's
fantastic.
old school.
Old school helmets, but
Well, you guys survived.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. All right, let's go on here. The day after Christmas, believe it or not, you may not remember this, but you played Auburn. You beat Auburn 3-1, and the goal scorers were Kevin Grant, Scott O'Connor, and Mark Tepper. So now your record's 3-1, so not a bad record. December 28th, you were playing quite a bit in those days. You played Hudson, Hudson usually has good teams. But you defeated them 7-4. Jim Brown got 2 goals, Scott O'Connor got 1, and Mark Tepper got 4. So you're off to a 4-1 record. I don't know if you remember any of
Mr.
those.
Mr. Bissett was the coach.
Yeah, Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Alex Williams.
Alex,
That's right.
yeah.
Alex did score a goal in that game.
Yeah. He's in my golf league now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I have a golf league at Stowe. I see him all the time.
Is it? Yeah. Well, you took care of them. And then you played some team named Marlboro.
Yeah.
New Year's came, January 4th, and they were kind of a thorn in the side. Marlboro 4, Westboro 1, lone goal for Westboro, Jim Brown, and a fellow by the name of John Pacific scored the hat trick for Marlboro. You remember him at all, the Marlboro?
Yeah, about 9 of them. The Pacific Brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
We
Lots of
know the Pacifics, and they were a wagon. Marlboro was rolling over everybody.
Yeah.
Steve Jacobs was the coach, I believe.
Yeah.
Still before he left to go to Cushing, build the dynasty up at Cushing there for decades.
Yeah, they were, at that point, and as we go along, they were undefeated.
Yeah.
Nobody had beaten them. So then you play Worcester Oak, January 7th, and you defeat them 6-2. Mr. O'Connor here got a couple goals.
And,
Mark
and I
Tepper got a
think,
couple.
by the way, we had like 75 shots in that game.
Yeah.
Which game?
That goalie
There was a goal. There was an
Which game is
unbelievable
this?
Worcester Vote.
Oh, the Worcester Oak game?
And there was an unbelievable goal.
I remember that.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Basic.
Yeah, it could have been.
Oh my God! It was we bombed that. I mean,
And you can only get 6 in?
six
Yeah,
in, and I think that was at Holy Cross that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good shaking his hand after the game.
Oh, yeah,
he was well worth the
Michael Pasek, I think his name
Mason
was.
well worth the price of
Maybe,
admission.
yeah.
That reminds me of when Ron Tugnut, see, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah.
how many saves he made, and the
62
Brewers went out and
or-
shook his hand.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So now you're 5-2, you beat Worcester Oak, and you're playing Maynard, January 11th. The final score there, 10-1. So I don't know how many shots you had there. Andy Fay got the hat trick that night. Scott, you got a couple, Jim Brown, Dave McDonald, Kevin Grant, Steve Tepper, and Dan Moulton. So basically everybody scored in that game. So you're 6-2, moving along. January 14th, you play Shrewsbury again, and you defeat them 6-2, and your record's 7-2. So you're moving along. So you must have felt, I suppose you felt a little bit better now as you go along. Halfway decent record.
But coming off the year before, we won most of our games then too. I don't remember thinking.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, we
But you
were-
had a whole different team now.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, but we were
still-
used to winning.
You
We were.
Yeah.
Well, you
From
guys,
that-
you two were. Steve
From
is.
that year before.
Steve didn't know any better.
No, he just won.
Can I get a ride to practice? Remember Scott giving me rides to practice and playing yes in the car.
Right.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Get a ride.
So you play
good memory.
you play Grafton, you beat them 5-0, a shutout. Both Mark and Steve Tepper, Kevin Grant, Danny Moulton, Jim Brown score, and your record's 8-2. Moving up the line, January 21st, you play Wayland, you beat them 4-1. Moulton, Brown, O'Connor, and Fay, and then you play Acton Boxborough again, but this time it didn't work out as well. They defeated you 3-0. Now you shut out. Andy Bachman, Tom Bouvier, and Chris Patrick scored for them. So they were a tough team, I guess. Back.
Oh yeah. And their youth program was always great. That Bachman kid, I remember my whole life. Yeah, they were always solid up there.
Yeah.
Continue to be.
I think sometimes it's always good to lose a game.
Yeah.
You know?
No shame in that.
Yes. Okay, so we're 9-3. January 28th, we're at the North Star. We play Maynard again, and we beat them 5-2. Mark Tepper 2, Andy Fay, Dave McDonald, Nick Neveroni. So we have a new name scoring. Now we come to Hudson, who we have defeated before, and the score's 4-4. But we trail 4-2, and Jim Brown gets a couple goals to tie it. Do you remember that game?
No.
You don't remember that?
Look at the helmets we wore. I don't remember anything.
I know.
So now you're 10-3-1.
Lucky we're not drooling.
They actually tied a game, which NHL doesn't allow ties anymore, but we did.
It's high school.
Yeah, it was high school.
It's another game after us, so get off.
You're out of here. February 4th, we play Grafton. We beat them 4-1 again. Scott O'Connor, Dave McDonald, Mark Tepper, Steve Tepper. Your record's 11-3. So you're moving on. And then you play Wachusett, and they defeat you 6-2.
There was Scotty LaChance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They had a kid named Dale Burnham, Eric Ardella, Brian White, Craig Ludwig. So they took care of you pretty well.
Not the same one.
So I guess you have to come back to earth once in a while. But your record's still 11-4-1. Not a bad record. We go to the Navin rink in Marlboro to play Marlboro again. A little bit closer. Marlboro 4, Westboro 3 this time.
We're gonna get him.
We're gonna
Knocked up a 2. Jim Brown scored. They had John Pacific got a goal, Artie Larson, Mark Capadonna, Rick Island. And at that point, you're 11-5-1. Marlboro 16-0.
Right.
Nobody can beat Marlboro.
They had a goalie, Timmy Makris, that was really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'll get back to him.
Okay, we'll get, there's another game coming.
Yeah. We'll talk about Tim.
they had a deep team, and boy, that was a
Well,
loud. It was like a
Tough place to play.
tough
over
place to play, and it's a small state, a state rink, the old MDC rinks, like
Another Bobby Orr thing.
Haven. Exactly, Bobby Orr. That's why they're small.
now
They took the footprint of the old Boston Garden.
Is that right?
now the year before, had you played Marlboro? Do you remember these guys from the year before?
yeah.
Oh yes.
Always a wagon. Always great.
Always.
Always a challenge. Yeah, big town.
I think
Very
there was
talented.
dynasties in high school. Auburn had theirs in the 70s, kind of.
Hudson
Marlboro,
did.
Hudson had theirs. Marlboro was having theirs kind of at that time. They were just deep
But
for
we,
years.
when we played them our whole lives, we knew exactly what that team was, and
And they knew you.
yeah.
Yeah, goes both ways. So they're 16-0, but we're still looking pretty good. We have 11-5-1. Now we play Auburn again. This time we beat them 7-1. And Bill Campbell got 2, Scott O'Connor 2, Jim Brown, Steve Tepper, Mark Tepper. Bill Campbell, first time I mentioned his name. He came in later, I guess, to the program, or he didn't start with you fellas.
Well, he had gone over to St.
St.
Peter's,
Peter,
Oh,
and he was a big part of our
Yeah.
team at the end. I mean, he was a kid that, like these two had aspirations, well beyond what high school was going to be. So he had a full boat to Michigan after that, after this season, coming out of Westboro High, which is kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Well, Michigan, yeah, it's a powerhouse for college hockey.
Right, Red Berenson coming to look.
Oh, Red was the coach then?
Oh yeah. And
So did he scout you guys? Did him?
in those days, high school. We should mention Central Mass Hockey had no status at all. It was, if you were going to get looked at, you'd be seen at Hockey Night in Boston or something that you're doing in the summertime, or Europa Cup, or some of those things that you do in the summertime. And my mother always said, "You're not playing hockey in the summer." So I played baseball, and a lot of the notice, I think, came in the summertime.
Hockey at that
You'd
time
agree.
was just really the 128 belt. Inside the 128 belt was hockey. And then you got outside that 495. And if you were outside that 495 belt, it was
I played Hockey Night in Boston, and it was being held in Stoneham.
Stoneham,
And the kids asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Westboro." They go, "Weston?" I said, "No, Westboro." They had no.
Well, outside of 128
is that
is
by
like in
Springfield?
California.
They
somewhere.
feel like
I
it
mean,
just fall. The
Is
earth
that by
just falls
Springfield?
off right there. Yeah.
Where is that? Is that
Yeah.
Western Mass?
Yeah.
No, it's Central
And,
Mass.
and my
Central Mass.
my defensive partner in Hockey Night in Boston was from Springfield,
Yeah.
and they just didn't want to talk to us. We didn't exist.
you're from a different planet.
Different planet.
It was really a 1, 2, 3 kind of inside 128, high end. Then you got outside 128, Framian, Natick, Whalen. That was a different kind of core. And then if you went on that side of 495, it was like, do you have hockey out there?
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for Bobby Orr, you probably wouldn't have
Probably
had
wouldn't
hockey
have,
out
right.
here. But
Big.
thank goodness for Bobby. All right, so we're 12-5-1. We play our buddies Algonquin again on February 21st. Mark Tepper gets the hat trick, and you win 3-2. So it was Mark Tepper 3 and Algonquin 2. So 13-5-1. February 23rd, 2 days later, we play Worcester Volk again, and we defeat them 6-2 again. Almost the same score. Mark Tepper got a couple, Bill Campbell got a couple. So I don't know if they had the same goalie that night or...
Sure they did. I'm
They
sure.
did. March 3rd. Now we're playing in the quarterfinals. We're the 5th seed. I don't know how many seats they had. About 4. But
So now,
It was Division 2. There wasn't Division 3. It was Division 1. I think Division 1, Division 2. I don't even know if they had a Division 3, did they?
Not sure.
I don't think they did.
Well, we're playing this team called Groton Dunstable.
Opening round?
Yeah.
Opening round.
This is a game I do remember.
And Danny Moulton got a couple, Jim Brown a couple, Scott O'Connor, Bill Campbell, Steve Tepper, Matt Sweat, 8-1. This is the playoffs, and we come in here like,
What was their seed?
I don't know what their seed was.
Higher than us?
So talk about, I tried to get information on this, thank goodness to you guys. There were many newspapers, but the newspapers didn't give you guys, needless to say, top billing.
Yeah.
No.
So try to find out information. It took a little bit to get the information, so thank goodness we have what we have. So I don't know what seed they were, but they were probably higher than you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember being shocked at that game that it went that easy.
Yeah.
you know, scoring 8 goals.
Yeah, they're a big regional.
Yeah.
We felt good about that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you did. You beat them 8-1. So I guess it gave you a little bit of confidence. And now you're playing Marlboro. Here we go again. Final score, Marlboro 2, Westboro 3. Jim Brown, Bill Campbell, Steve Tepper scored. A fellow by the name Charles Gerardo and Rick Island scored for them. And, of course, they had been undefeated for quite a while. You had lost to them twice. Mark Tepper was injured,
Yep.
so you didn't have your top scorer.
Went and checked.
And
What?
their goalie was Timmy Minkris, who I guess some of you knew from
I just
Westbrook.
knew of him. I mean, he was in the area. He was.
Are we gonna start it? Yeah.
He was pretty strong for our area. I think we're not giving enough credit to Bobby Hunter, our goaltender at the time. I mean, he put a lot of games on his back with Scott and with Dave and a couple of defensemen we had back there. But Bobby kind of stayed under the radar there. But he was fantastic in a lot of those games. I mean, he was just lights out. So, we talk about Tim Makris in the Marlboro end, but Bobby Hunter did just as well down in our end.
So
Well, that game, just to expound on that was
That was the game.
shocked the world in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never forget the picture of the final score with Dave McDonald with his hands up in 3-2, and at the end of that game, they were bombing us, and Bobby was taking shots off the face. Charlie Arado was their big kid, and I remember shots going off Bobby's face. I remember posts. It was a wild end, but to knock that team off was huge. I mean, it was. I never forget that night driving back from that game, thinking we just did something that no one will believe.
Yeah, I remember.
Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember walking into the rink and walking by their locker room, and I hear music playing.
Yeah.
They got music, and I'm like,
That didn't happen much.
Not back then. I think it's more prevalent now with
Yeah,
sports.
I bet.
But we got in our locker room, and I just remember the locker room being really quiet, and everyone was getting ready. It just seems like we were really prepared for that game.
Billy Campbell, I'll never forget the face-off where the ref, he was playing center at that point, and the ref had to separate the two of them because Billy was grinding his helmet into that opposite center's helmet.
They
to
bent
the,
over that much.
to the point where it was like they had to stop and separate, and Billy was frothing at the mouth, and I'll never forget Steven's goal on a big gangly freshman just would go to the net hard and scored on that rebound, and that won it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Game
I
winner.
mean, I tied it up on a rebound that was typical of what we did.
You're a
it was
garbage guy.
Garbage.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think I ever shot and went in. If I didn't end up in the net with the puck, I didn't know what to do with myself. But that we went to the net. It was really hard.
Yeah.
It was textbook hard underdog hockey. It was awesome.
Well, you were ahead 3-0, and then they came back.
Yeah.
And I guess you said, like they said, they kept coming and
Yeah.
coming and coming.
Yeah. Especially at the end.
Well, it goes back to what Steve said. I guess the goalie bailed you out. at
Sure
the
did.
end.
Oh, yeah.
You got the 3.
Sure did.
Bill was out in a lot of games. I mean, he was just
Good
underrated.
athlete.
Very good athlete.
Yeah.
But that was a big game. I remember.
Yeah, I remember afterwards. It was very surreal in the locker room.
Yeah.
It was
In
just-
your locker room?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we just did
again,
something. Yeah.
We went back there. We sat down. I just remember we were still quiet, and I didn't hear any music from the other locker room anymore. And we were just quiet. And I remember a couple
Was
of
it
our
like you didn't
fans,
believe what you had done? or
Yeah,
what?
yeah. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, it was that big.
Yeah.
I mean, no one had even to come 4-3 on them. I remember being a big thing, but no one had ever come close to them. I mean, they were, picture today's game, today's teams that roll through. You beat an undefeated team, and you had no business really. The world said.
I
doing
think my
it.
cousin
Great.
Mark played in that game. He was, I think, one of our leading scorers, if not our leading scorer at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
he got leg checked there, and of course, that was his own fault for going into my dad's hot tub when you're supposed to put ice on it.
First time I heard the word hematoma, right? That knocked Mark out of that. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what it
That's
said.
what
Mark
heat on it after you
Not a
bruise
hot
it?
tub?
When you bruise it,
Yeah. Oh.
heat, ice. What's
Right.
that?
That's that was in the paper. It says
No trainers back
Mark Tepper was injured with a high hematoma. I still don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
No, well, you know what it is? It's
Thigh bruise.
when you get a bruise and you get in a hot tub after it. That's a hematoma.
Also, I see. I mean, we ought to move on here.
Right.
So that was, I have here the big upset, and it was March 7th, 1984. So we move on. And now we're in the finals for this area. We're up at the Wallace Civic Center that
Yeah.
we talked about where the Bruins play. And you're playing Hudson again. And I don't know if it would seem too easy, but you defeat them 9-3. I mean, here we are in a championship game.
Yeah.
Billy Campbell, 3 goals. Scott, 2. Steve got 1. Danny Moulton and Jim Brown got 2. And I got to do. This is a quote I found after the game, and it says, "Jim." This is quoting Jim Brown on the
Yeah,
final goal.
I know what you're going to say too, Paul.
I brought the goalie to one side. I knew he would come with me, and I put it up a la Rick Middleton.
Thank you. That's right. That's right.
And Middleton's number went up, you know.
That's
Last
right.
night.
Yes.
Last night.
So
He
are they
was-
going to put yours up in Westboro?
He was
Huh?
the. Yeah, well, we could talk about that later.
That's
No.
my idol.
Yeah, yeah. I had a cat named Middleton too. That's the other.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. We named our cat Middleton. He was the guy. He was smooth as anything, and we all tried to emulate. And yeah, that's what we did. You know, we watched those Bruins teams,
Yeah.
and like you do. I wish the kids would do that more today. You know, watch those players, and we tried to do what they did. Yeah, for sure.
Wouldn't it be nifty if Ricky hit 50? I still want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason they called him Nifty.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was smooth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we tried to do it.
tried to
Once
do
in a
it.
while it worked out.
He bridged the gap. He said last night he bridged the gap of the 70s type of no helmet, goony kind of hockey into the 80s when they merged with the WHL and helmet rules, and it just became a different game. It was really 70s hockey into 80s, which is kind of morphed into kind of where we are now.
Yeah, it is a different game. So I have another, if I may. I don't know, like Jim, you seem to be the guy that all these
Yeah, he
quotes
was
are in the
our
newspaper.
spokesman, I think, right?
Well, this is your
Because
Jim's
Billy,
a bashful guy, though.
because Billy and I wouldn't leave the locker room until we had our interview. Yeah.
Well, this is a quote from Al Coolidge, your coach. He says, and he's talking about you, Jim. He doesn't look like he's doing much, but you look up and he's got a goal or an assist that wins the game.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what your coach thought of you.
Wow.
But I think that means it sounds like you're a grinder. You're out there and you do what you have to do.
Yeah, well, he'd keep us grounded. He'd say that about anybody on that team. You know, he wasn't going to say that we're anything, which is, but he happens to be right in this case.
All right, so now we're into the Central West Championship. We're still up at the Wallace. It's March 14th. We win this, we're into the state championships. And we're playing Pittsfield.
Yeah.
And Pittsfield's record at the time was 20 wins, no losses, and 1 tie.
So they needed a loss.
So they, well, what happened was their goalie was injured, so they didn't have their number 1 goalie.
Come on, Paul.
Right,
Really?
right. I'm just telling you, I'm just reading the facts here, Jim. 4-3.
I don't think
Jim
Mark-
Brown
I don't
gets
think-
a
I don't think
couple.
Mark
Bill-
was still playing at the time.
Bill
so we were
Campbell
missing
got a
player,
couple.
too.
So, I mean, a team from Pittsfield, you have no idea what they're like, I suppose. I mean, there wasn't scouting or anything like that.
I only had heard that they were perennial,
Yeah.
power.
They're
They're the
solid out there.
Well, they hadn't lost a game all
Western
year.
Mass powerhouse every year. That's all we knew.
Yeah, you knew you had to go through them. I mean, I think we were conscious of when we were watching the brackets. You knew you had to go through them. They were going to win the West or whatever that.
Yeah.
they were.
I think a lot of teams took us for granted. I know Hudson, when we played them, probably they were happier than we were probably when we beat Marlboro.
Right,
Me
right.
and them being side by side and always rivals. I know, us knocking Marlboro off was almost like we just opened the door for them to kind of run through. And I would think Pittsfield was feeling the same way. A small town from Westboro will roll them.
Hey,
But we were on a roll though. I mean, we had just played at Wallace. We had a really good feeling coming back to Wallace after having 9 goals, and we were feeling pretty good about ourselves. I remember talking about that game before we went out there and what we were gonna do to them, and yeah, we were on one of those rolls.
Yeah.
I have another quote here, and again, it has to do with Jim Brown.
Shocking.
Billy say it?
After this, Jim Brown says, I'm still waking up to the fact that we beat Marlboro.
Yeah, it's true.
That was the big
I
deal.
know.
That was
It's
it.
true.
So here you are beating these guys, but geez, somehow we beat
That's
Marlboro.
right. Yeah. That was a big one. Like I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
before, didn't
You weren't getting anywhere, and we kind of knew that going up, as Marlboro would be the one you would have to get out of to get if you want to go anywhere.
get to the next level.
They were the 800-pound gorilla that you had to beat, or someone did.
Yeah, you didn't consider life beyond Marlboro much then. You kind of felt like that was, if you got beyond there, you're on house money.
Yeah, they finished, let's see, I should have it here, just so, for the record. They finished 19-2. So you were one of the twos. I don't know who the other one was, but that's pretty impressive. I mean, and it's you were playing them for the third time, so.
So I guess we were two of their 19 also.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. I mean, it's hard to beat someone 3 times.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true, and you had their number.
Well, you look at the scores. It was what 4-1,
Creeping up.
4-3, and all of a sudden we beat 3-2. So we were getting there. Every time we played them, we were getting there. No doubt.
And you got there.
We did.
So now all of a sudden, it's the day after St. Patty's Day. It's March 18th, 1984. We're in the state championship game. And I remember it was a big deal for Westboro. I mean, the Red Sox hadn't won since 1918. The Bruins, they kind of, nothing since 72. Patriots were a mess then. So it was a big deal for Westboro. I remember my kids, because Scott lived across the street from me, they were looking out the window, and they had signs for Scott. And when they saw you coming out to the car, they ran out with their signs. It was a big deal for Westboro. I think half of Westboro must have been at the Centrum.
It was the Centrum Center.
Yeah, which is a whole nother topic. It was the first time the state championship hadn't been held at the Boston Garden.
Which, they moved it out, yeah?
They moved it out because they had just opened the Centrum, and I don't remember being that upset about it then, but I would have liked to have played at the Garden.
Right at the Garden.
Yeah.
And it would have been the old Garden.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're watching the other brackets, and they had won at the Garden to come to the Centrum, so they had their experience.
They had been on the ice,
They had been on that ice, and interestingly enough, we were watching Tommy Glavins was on the Billerica team,
right?
That got knocked off by Columbus,
Right.
but we were kind of watching Tommy Glavin coming our way because he was the one that got all the press in Massachusetts.
He was the guy, yeah.
And he got knocked off, so we didn't get a chance to play against him, but we played against a pretty
Yeah,
talented
because
team.
Tommy, of course, is in the Hall of Fame pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, but he was drafted by the Los Angeles Kings.
Right.
So he was a two-way player there.
Yeah, we knew
he
it
was quite
then.
an athlete.
Yeah.
So the year after our senior year, I went to prep school, and I met a kid at prep school I could play hockey with, Chris Cuniff, John Cuniff's son.
Yep.
And he was on Christopher Columbus High School. We met, became good friends. He said going to the Centrum was a letdown. Because for them, they just won the Eastern Mass Championship at the Boston Garden, and then they were told they had to go to the Centrum. And he goes, we didn't want to play the game.
Out into the hinterlands.
It was a letdown.
Would have been fine without it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You just give it to us. That's
And so, but then they came out and they played us.
the powerhouse in the state was Matignon, and that was the D1 game. And I
Right.
remember, was it Matignon at St. Peter Marion, I think?
Yeah.
it was
St. Peter's
Peter
was right after us, which was really great.
two
Because a lot of
Central Mass
Westboro
teams
kids
against two
kids we
Eastern
knew
Mass
were
teams.
coming on
Good play night.
after against Matignon. Yeah. It was interesting.
Well, you're going to play Columbus High, Christopher Columbus High, for boys. It was run by the Franciscan Fathers. And they were at the corner of Tilliston and North Bennett Street in the north end of Boston. But they weren't a north end team, really. It was a diocesan team for Boston. So they had quite a group of kids. And on the other side of the building was St. Juliet Billiard School for Girls. So it was like a boys and girls. I guess the fathers wanted to keep the boys and girls separate. And it would close in 1990. It's a bunch of condos right now.
Now defunct. Yeah.
Yep. So before we get to the game, I just want to read the players. We should give credit, I think, due to all the players that were on that team. And we'll go through them. If you want to jump in and say anything about them, give me a holler. Your goalie, number 1, Bob Hunter. He was a junior. Number 2, you had a freshman by the name of Mark Stevens.
Yep.
Number 3, a sophomore, Matthew Sweat. Number 4, sophomore, Darren McConnell. Number 5, one of the co-captains, a senior, Danny Moulton. Number 6, freshman, Chris Kaler. Number 7, a senior defenseman, Dave McDonald. Number 8, co-captain, Scott O'Connor, senior. Number 9, a freshman, Craig Martin. Number 10, your co-captain Eric Tepper, senior. And then you had number 11, Eric Tepper.
No. Mark Tepper would have
Mark.
been number 10, the
Yeah.
co-captain. His brother Eric
Yeah.
is coming.
That was his brother.
No, Mark is the one that had the hematoma.
Right.
He was the assistant captain.
He was.
Number 10. His brother is, I think he was 21.
Okay. Jim Brown was number 12, junior sniper. 14, Kevin Grant. 15, junior Brian Cachaputi. Number 16, junior Bill Campbell. Number 17, you got the number right, Steve Tepper?
Yep,
Okay.
at the time.
Number 8, Kyle Johnson, a freshman. Number 19, sophomore Andrew Fay. Number 20, a freshman Nick Leveroni.
Yep.
Number 21, freshman Jason Lanzetta.
Oh, jeez.
And number 30, backup goalie Patrick McGlinchey. And the coach was Al Coolidge. So that's what was going into the Centrum. And we have some picture. There you are. That's before the game.
Interesting one.
So you can see number 12 there, Jim Brown.
Yep.
He's in there.
Billy
So you're
Campbell.
getting ready. Let's
Yeah,
see what
right.
else we have here. We have,
Hand on his hip.
there you are.
Billy.
That's the
No,
last-
that was
Oh, was that you?
Yeah, he was 16.
Yeah. So we're getting, and there
So,
was,
you know what's funny, Paul?
Yeah.
We got our head shaved.
If you go back
for
to that picture,
If you
Yeah.
went
go
back
back,
to
there you
there we
go.
go.
what? Okay, that's not for the, I don't think that's at the Centrum, because we had maybe they all grew in. Maybe they're growing in there.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is the Centrum. This
It
is,
is?
this is the national anthem, getting ready.
So we thought we were a hot dog because we shaved our head, and
Yeah.
we looked across, and they had bird nests
Yeah.
Oh, really?
shaved into their head,
They
and
were
they
like
looked like,
Friar
they were
Tuck-
friars.
Friar Tuck.
Oh, the Friars, Friars.
and they looked like men.
Yeah,
And,
especially Jim Vesey, I think. He drove himself.
I was 14. I'm taking draws. Is that your wife and kid in the stands?
exactly.
That's what they were. There was one of the face-offs. We'll have
Yeah, yeah.
these. But there's somebody that almost looked like getting a slew foot there. Like, who was 8? Let's see.
Is that Nolan?
That's Billy Nolan,
Billy
number
Nolan.
18.
18 would have been Bill Nolan, yeah.
Went on to BC, right?
Oh, he went to BC,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's one. I can't tell who it is, but it looks like he was taking a high dive there.
Yeah.
Almost looked like another slew foot. Now this year, some of these pictures I took, and this one here, the things weren't going too well.
No.
So Scott drew a penalty.
Oh, I did.
So I said, geez, I got to get a picture of Scott's number up on the scoreboard
great.
because we're not getting anything up on the scoreboard.
Great.
So there you are, Scott. I don't know what you did, but you got your number
It
up on the
was,
scoreboard.
it was worth it.
So these are pictures
your
you
money's
took,
worth.
Paul,
Yeah.
huh?
So most of these I took. Some of them Scott had. This one I don't think I took. This one, because some of them I took.
The orange seats.
Now this is the goal. Scott got a goal, but you can't see Scott. But there's Jim coming in.
Jim.
And, who's 19? Andrew
19's
Fay.
Andy Fay.
So that was the goal you got. There it is. So we'll call this the highlight. Nobody has to know the final.
My cousin Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
that
some
looks
more.
Dave McDonald right there.
Yeah, it's that Dave McDonald. Yeah.
There's the old Dave Max in front of the net there.
Yeah.
Catch behind the net.
And that was the final. Unfortunately, we didn't fare too well. We lost
No.
8-1. And Billy Nolan got a couple. Alan Caparella, Brian Ward, Bill Vrabel, Dan Fulham, Chris Conniff, and Jim Vesey. Now, Jim Vesey, he would eventually play for a little bit for the Blues and Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
He's now a Maple Leaf scout. And, of course, his son, Jimmy Vesey, plays for the New York Rangers.
Right.
And as Scott said, the Conniffs,
Played a minute.
they had so you had some hockey pedigree blood on this
Charlestown
team.
kids, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yes, Chris Conniff was from Southie. He went to New Prep with me the following year, and I when we used to travel, if I came back to Cambridge to New Prep, I didn't want to drive all the way back to Westboro, so I stayed at his house in Southie. Met his father a couple times.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
They shouldn't have been D2, Paul.
yeah.
is it, yeah.
Well, I asked him. I said, "So where were you from?" He's like, "I'm Southie." He was from Charlestown.
Yeah.
He was from Dorchester. I go, "How'd you get to school?" We all took the T, you know. As a
But it just wasn't a North End school. I mean, they were
I was
they
well,
had pulled that man.
well recruited.
So they would, even though they didn't want to come out and play it, they won the championship. But
They were good. We were a very good high school hockey team from Central Massachusetts that really overachieved in a lot of different ways. I think for the core of us, and we stuck together, we hung together, we believed in one another. we had a really good Christopher Columbus team. I mean, it was just deep. And
But
we started to get exposed at that point. That we were good, but there was limitations to how far we could go, I think.
But I think what you did for Westboro is kind of, you pulled the whole town together. I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I do remember walking in town and people yelling out windows and, hey, good luck Sunday. And, you know, it was, it was a little, you know, we played in front of good, big crowds going up to that, but they were all kids in the crowd. And when you got here, you realized most of the town was there, and it was a family event. There was a lot of people there, and it was a different ball game entirely. You know, the ice wasn't good either. It was funny. Remember,
It was terrible.
they had
soft.
we were breaking. You were skating on concrete in the corners. Nothing to do with the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I understand.
But
it was
the
same
whole,
for both teams.
But the whole environment it just wasn't right. It was going to be tough to come out of there. It was a different thing.
Really warm.
Really
It
warm.
was a brand new rink facility, so it was really ice and they hadn't been doing it for years and years, so I assume the refrigeration was not, they didn't have it down yet. They probably put it down 5 days before we were even playing on it, and it just really hadn't built up to make it a good surface to play on. You know, the ice was warm, and they didn't have locker rooms. They sat in chairs, and
Yeah, that's right.
big swing hall even down the bottom of the Centrum, those big swing halls and just chairs, and it was
different.
the Boston Garden would have been, epic, I think, in all of our lives.
the Boston
growing
Garden
up.
was the holy grail.
It was the holy grail.
To play hockey.
Yeah,
So I'll agree with Christopher Columbus.
it would have been a letdown.
I think if I had even known as a young boy that, hey, we should be playing at the Garden, I probably would have been let down, but I probably didn't even have the concept
Yeah, I don't think we understood.
that we were missing out because we'd never been there before.
Yeah. But you were there. You got there. Championship game. One of two
Well, we
teams.
got our Bobby Orr experience. He came in at our banquet at the end of the year. Through some source, I have
Billy
ideas.
Martin. Billy Martin,
I think Mr. Martin with the old Piccadilly pub that was in the center of
Downstairs,
center of Westboro. He used to have a lot of sports photos and his connections through the Bruins and I think Blades and Boards and that type of thing.
Dale Chambers.
Got us Bobby Orr. I mean, we were told we were going to get him. We were going to have something special at our banquet. It was at the
KFC.
KFC. And sure enough, walked through the door to hand us those
Yeah, here's
jackets
the
there.
jacket. We still have the jacket. Yeah.
Was Bobby Orr,
Yeah.
Wesboro, Massachusetts.
Did you have any clue that he was coming? All of a sudden, there's
didn't.
Bobby
You
Orr?
guys might have as an older group. I had no clue.
I don't remember.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I do have a picture of him handing my jacket to me, though.
Was that right? Yeah.
And I do remember asking him if he was really tripped by Noel Picard in that overtime goal, and he said mostly excitement, but. But, 83, 84, you're only, I was thinking about this today, you're only 11, 12 years beyond when all that stuff was happening.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's a long time ago, but at that point, it's funny to think it was only a decade removed from that time. So he was he's a huge deal, but really big deal then to see him.
That was a huge deal for me.
Oh.
I mean, a lot of the good things in the season, but having that guy shake my hand and hand me my
That was quite a year.
coach or league champion and coast
Right.
runners up state championship jacket at 14 years old was that was pretty big in my life.
Well, time goes on, but I think he still missed the hockey in Boston.
Oh yes, it's Mr. Hockey in the world.
And what a guy.
Classy,
Just the best. And then I think we had baseball practice the next day.
Yeah.
I think literally the next day was the first day of baseball.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Doyle yelling at me?
Yeah.
we're going to take a break here for a minute, guys. We're going to do our photos from On the Sidelines. And many of us like sports, and many of us like to take photos. And I'm one of those that do both. So this picture here was taken, as you can see, March 31st, 1991. And Chris Nyland set the record for most penalties in a game and most penalty minutes in a game. So I had taken this picture in 1991, and I would get it autographed 2 years ago in the year 2017 when I met Chris. So we had this blown up. We were at a golf tournament fundraiser. We blew it up to, I think, a 8x10. And this is the 5x7. But anyway, we blew it up. And Chris himself auctioned off the picture. We got $1,900.
Wow.
That's great.
So, I mean, it shows you hockey people what they'll pay for. And this is kind of a hobby, but the hobby turned into getting money for
Tremendous.
for a charity. So if you're youngsters out there, you enjoy photography, you enjoy sports, try it out, see what you can do. And you can see that picture was 1991. I didn't get the autograph till 2017. You never know. You just keep them. And the pictures you had, Scott, most of those that you had for your game, 35 years old.
Right.
But they're still good. So let's get on. Okay, so that's it. Send your, I'm going to have a trivia question for this. You get the prize from Avidia Bank. And the question is, it has to do with Chris Nyland. He played in 688 NHL games. He had 3,043 penalty minutes. A couple more than you guys. So the question is, how many goals did he have? 688 games, 3,043 penalty minutes. How many goals did Chris Nyland score? And he just wasn't a goon. He could put the puck in the net. So send that in to studio@westprotv.org, and Avidia Bank will have a nice prize for you. Boys, hockey's over, school's over. What's life done to you after hockey?
Well, I went to new prep school, now defunct, in Cambridge, to try and get some more coaches to look at me for college. And I got a lot of college offers, Division II mostly, a couple pro scouts looking, but nothing. I never was drafted in the NHL entry draft. My best offer was from Merrimack College, which then was Division II. And I went to talk to Coach Anderson and
Play with Veazey.
yeah, right. And I said, well, what's the scholarship look like? He says, I have no money. And so I said, well, then I don't want to go here. And because I really wanted to I wanted to get a computer science degree, and they really didn't have computer science. So I'll say I played hockey from age 5 to age 40, except for 4 years. I stopped hockey after that and got my college education.
And so what have you been doing?
So then hockey after that, I played probably from out of college to about at age 40, I considered myself retired, and I haven't skated in over a decade.
Yeah. So what have you done for a job?
I became a software engineer at a company called Sun Microsystems, which eventually got purchased by Oracle, and I'm currently an Oracle employee.
Now you have a daughter.
I have a daughter, yes.
Does she have any idea that you play hockey here? Does she care about hockey or is this going to be something new that she's learning here?
Yeah, she knew I played hockey. She knew I was the captain, and I really don't talk about it much. So this will be something that she'll probably learn for the first time. She played soccer. I coached her in soccer from age 6 to under 18s. So, and that's really the sport I watch now, European soccer, or football as I call it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Jim, what's happened to you?
Yeah, so I went and played hockey at Connecticut College, and it's funny, when we were talking about, we had a moment when I was playing against Middlebury, a kid named Jeff Casey played on the Pittsfield team, and we had a moment after one of our games where we realized we were both on that, that stage, which was interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I had a good time, and those were the days you could jump onto a Division III team and play. NESCAC is a good league for me, and had a good time. I work at Primary Colors now. We're a manufacturer of color concentrate for plastic, and I've got a couple daughters, and I married my not high school sweetheart, but I tried to make her my high school sweetheart at the time, Carrie Cowan at the time, and probably because I played in this game, it came around. Just kidding.
Must have been the quotes.
Right.
Well, you lost the game.
So... Right. That's right. I forgot that. And my daughters, I have twin daughters that are in college now, and they know chapter and verse of my hockey career.
Oh, they
because it was a huge part of it's everything. I mean, it's what I had the most fun doing it, and they ended up playing through their high school and had a good experience with Shrewsbury High girls that had some good postseason experience as well. And So off they go. Yeah, they get a kick out of my old
Now,
story.
you are assistant coach at Westboro High now.
Yes,
for hockey.
yes,
So
yes.
what
I
do you
love
see
it.
between when you guys were playing and now? Any difference in high school or what?
Yeah, we a lot more specialization on hockey now. A lot of these kids really, that's what they play. I don't want to. There's certainly multiple sport athletes, but they're really focused in on hockey. I think that being said, I think we lived and breathed it a little bit more, and took things really personally, and what I do try to say, what I do harken back to this team. I joke because there's a banner in Westboro that has the Westboro High exploits, and Steven and I a few years ago rolled that out. And if you're from the visitors box at the rink, it says 1984 under state. And what you can't read is it says finalists under the 1984. If you're from a distance, it looks like we won it.
Yeah.
And I tell the kids, when you guys are looking at the American flag during the anthem, I'm looking at 1984, and
I look at that.
and they do, they laugh. But I try to say everything is possible. You know, I'm that corny coach that says, I mean, we experienced knocking off somebody that was undefeated, and you know, as a cohesive group, you can do it. But it takes listening to the people that, you know, can get you there.
So you gotta buy in.
Yeah.
So.
And Steve, how about you afterwards?
Oh, I had a.
Give us all. Come on, give it all.
That was kind of just the start of my high school career. I mean, I got lucky enough to, you know, that was my freshman year. Not even 6 months later, I think I was on a Westboro High football team that won the, you know, Super Bowl. So, I mean, we went from, I was kind of on a high, kind of going from there. The Tom Powers and Doug Montgomerys and, you know, Kevin Collins of the world, you know, won, you know, this football Super Bowl that fall. And I was heavily involved in football. I loved playing football. So, I mean, just like I told you before, we played every, you know, fall sport, winter sport, spring sport, you know, football, hockey, right into baseball. And I went on and actually I accepted a football scholarship to the University of Maine. That same, my senior year of high school, I was also drafted by the Blackhawks in the NHL draft that particular year. Most of that was through my continual play in the Hockey Night in Boston series and playing. I liked them both, but football was where I was kind of going toward. I went to the University of Maine and ended up being able to kind of transfer out of, I was going to play football and hockey kind of at one point halfway through the fall. And once I got a taste of hockey at that level, I never went back to football. It was full bore going that way. And that was right at the beginning of UMaine's kind of Final Four. So my freshman year, we went to their first Final Four in Lake Placid and got to play in 2 additional ones myself. So I played at University of Maine, went on played some pro for about 4 years, got 1 game in the NHL regular season.
With the Blackhawks?
With the Blackhawks, which was, you know, obviously it's one, but, you know, you
One
check it
more
off.
than anybody else
One more,
has,
you
yes.
check it off.
Exactly.
Most of my time was spent playing the minor leagues, American Hockey League, with the Ice Cats, and I was in the Cape Breton the Oilers organization, and with the San Jose Sharks in Kansas City. So I was in a lot of different cities, got to travel, play for about 4 years, and then work for the Ice Cats 10 years when I got out. Good friend, football player from town, Tom Schaefer, got me into some corporate sales. I left that about 6 years ago to take a job over at the North Star Arena, where I'm still the
You're
hockey
back full
director
circle,
now.
back at the rink.
Great.
Coaching my kids and coaching, you know, the North Star program, where my 2 boys actually won back-to-back state championships the last 2 years with Shrewsbury. So I got to see them, and I reminded them many a times. I said, I know it's high school, but when you're that and old and you're like me, you can look back and say, well, you know, remember when we won 2 state championships. So.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Paul.
On the
Thanks,
Nipsey.
Paul.
35 years, hard to believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is Paul McGrath saying thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the game. And if you're not in the game, I hope to see you on the sidelines.